Hello. Thank you. Yes, this is the Depuy Pinnacle HIP Litigation podcast with your ever-present host, GF. And I realize this is an extra episode. I think we've actually had 3 episodes for this last week of August. But an issue came up that is really one just that we're going to discuss. It's not anything that you have to know. And if there's anyone here that's not interested in how we're going to compute the value of a case, if you're going to say, well, my lawyer does that, I don't need it, that's absolutely fine. You're not going to be missing much by this. But I had some real questions. And remember, I did settle an awful lot of personal injury cases and medical malpractice cases during the 33 years I was a lawyer. So I knew about it, but there still were some serious questions I had. So if you're wondering about how much your damages are and what kind of damages you're entitled to recover for, the reason that's important, it is that number that is used by both your attorney and the insurance company, or if there's no insurance company, Johnson & Johnson out of their pocket, to figure out what is your case worth. That's what makes them determine how many dollars they're going to offer you in settlement of your case. It's also what the court would use, although the judge does not ever tell them you should multiply it by 3 to 5 times, but that is the general rule. And every jury room, somebody always sneaks it in there somehow. I don't know how, but every juror knows that. But okay, let's get back into what was my question. My question was, could you please, just before we go any further, you see the little thumbs up down there saying that you enjoy the show? Could you just click that? I'll just hang on for a sec. Thank you. And, okay, yours says subscribed, but yours does not. So I'm going to wait for you to, if you would click subscribe, it doesn't cost you anything. We're the only place left with a free subscription, but it will get you notice on your e-box that there's a new episode of Depuy Pinnacle HIP Litigation podcast hosted by your friend and mine, me. So, GF. So, here's the issues that I was coming up with, and I actually sent a notice to my lawyer saying, I want you to clarify these legal theories for me, and I do not want an answer from a paralegal, secretary, or any other person who has not completed law school, passed the bar, and practiced in federal court. Okay. Let's say your case, we're getting there, because remember, November 8th, I think, is the date that Judge Kincaid has set to get your final claim for damages in. Not you, your lawyer has to do that, unless you're representing yourself. Then you have to do it. You know, that's a great question. I wonder how many people here. Maybe I could ask for a show of hands later. How many people here are representing themselves? You know, and I doubt very many. But okay, let's go down what is going to happen when those numbers are starting to be calculated into what is your case worth? How many dollars should you get? The kicker is those 3 huge verdicts. You can always say, I'm not going to bother getting into the chicken feed about how much did I spend on Vicodin and how many times did I drive to the doctor? I want my $100 million. That's what the jury said it's worth because of all the bull they put me through. And all of the numbers that we go through about this, that, and the other thing do not apply to punitive damages, which you very rarely see in a products liability case. But Judge Kincaid was shocked and stunned, and I can't say sickened, but he was really disturbed when it came clear that Johnson & Johnson's offices in London had sent out whatever sized hip appliances. So when your doctor said, Julie here, we're doing her surgery next week, can you send us a 51? Johnson & Johnson just looked around. What is that? That's like, I don't know, just send that. That looks like it'll fit. And that's what they did. Believe it or not, that is what they did. So that's disgusting. And that's why they got hit with punitive damages. But let's just say let's set punitive damages aside because it'll just screw everything up. Let's just sit down at the kitchen table, get out your yellow pad. I got my yellow pad right here. Why didn't you bring a yellow pad? Okay. Well, we're not going to wait for you. We're just going to, okay. All right, here we go. figure out what the value of your case is, we're going to first look up what were your, what we might call real damages. And those are, what did the bad appliance cost you, not the bad appliance, the bad hip and appliance cost you initially. Usually there's not much there. You might say, well, I don't know, I had some x-rays, but usually there's nothing there. It usually starts at surgery is where your damages accumulate, because that's the first date that you became in contact with the faulty product. So, all right, let's say you went to the hospital, the doctor put in the Depuy Pinnacle hip implant. Okay, the hip implant that I saw when I was in the hospital the first time was somewhere around $9,000 for the metal implant, and the doctor's services were about $20,000. So that was $29,000, and my stay in the hospital was rather long. It went about 7 days in the hospital. That's not normal, but I had a lot of things that went wrong, and that ended up running about, if I remember right, it was about $29,000. Thank God for health insurance for those of us who have it. And so if you add all of those together, and then I needed an ambulance to get home and pain medication for a month while I was in bed, and if you add up the cost of the person who came to my house to take care of me, and a different person who came to cook me some meals, and they sent nurses to my house to check and make sure I was all right, and I had to buy on Amazon a comfort toilet to sit on. I apologize for not warning about that. I bought a walker. I bought crutches. I bought a donut. In other words, that's a little pillow that you sit on, because I have found that sitting in bed after these operations, both times, my coccyx, that is not a dirty word. Stop sniggling. That is not a dirty word. It hurts. I think it's just from sitting up all day, but it would hurt. So I would have to start sitting on this little donut-y thing. Just a little blown up cushion that would go under my tuchus. But anyway, I'm going to say that cost about $100,000. But here's my question, and I actually don't know the answer, and I tried to look it up last night. When we come up with my big number, my total real damages, specific damages they're also called, is that number included? Was the cost of the surgery of the first one part of my damages, or only the repair of the damages? So in other words, obviously the pain medication I had to take from then on was caused by the appliance. So that would be damages that Johnson & Johnson has to pay. The times that I had to miss work, there weren't many, but there were a few times when it hurt too much to drive to work. That's Johnson & Johnson's. But that might be it as to the first one. Now, here's where Johnson & Johnson's bill in the restaurant really starts adding up. What about the second operation? Yes, everything involved in that is your claim to fame in this. It goes into your bill. So that's probably, I'm guessing, if in some parts of the country, it's probably less than $30,000. In some parts of the country, it's $100,000, especially if you're in Beverly Hills or San Francisco or something like that. Medical care is very expensive there for the outside of the, the standard insurance. If you want your own private doctor, that operation would cost $100,000. So that leaves me with a question. The lawyer doesn't know everything, no? After the second operation, the revision surgery that replaced and fixed the crummy first one, so are my damages now $200,000 because of both operations, Or are my damages only $100,000? Let's leave out that there's other things like, you know what, we'll get into. There are other things we'll get into. One we really want to get into. Don't let me forget loss of consortium. But my point here is that if the cost of the first surgery is included in my specials, well, now my case is worth $200,000, okay, times between 3 and 5, depending on how good your lawyer is. That's between 6 and 10, 600,000 and $1 million. That's what it's worth so far. But that's if you include both. If the lawyer says, no, the cost of doing the surgery that caused you the injury is not part of your damages, then my damages are only about probably $125,000, let's say, and the case would be worth right at this point about 3 times 125 would be 375, or maybe 5 times 125 would be 6.25, somewhere in that range. Now, on that, we're going to add a non-specific damage, which is loss of consortium. Okay, that's a claim that your wife or husband could have, saying this thing puts you in such pain that some nights or many nights, or hopefully not every night, you were in such horrible pain that darn thing prevented you from doing your hugging and squeezing duty. You know what I'm talking about, I hope. And that's, in these days, it may sound like a joke, but it's not a joke. It's a very serious aspect of pecuniary damages. And if this knee bastard that's in there, actually mine's out, but if it caused you to not be able to give your wife the hugging and squeezing that she is entitled to and to expect, then she gets money. She has a claim for loss of consortium. You don't have to die for that. Many people think you have to die for that. No, not at all. You just have to be hurt enough to where you couldn't do your duty as a man. No, she doesn't have to go elsewhere and get none of that. She can just make her own claim. A loss of consortium claim. If you went to a lawyer and signed up, and you are married, and you did not file a loss of consortium claim, I think you should call with the lawyer and have him explain to you why not. Because if there was, now maybe he asked you and said, was there any hugging and squeezing any nights you guys wanted to romp around? And you said, no, we can do it every time we want. Hell no, we'll do it here. So, okay, don't do that. Then you didn't have a loss of consortium. But if you unfortunately said like me and like everybody else, yeah, there were a lot of nights when I just couldn't do it. I couldn't stand the thought of her putting her weight on top of my Pinnacle, my Depuy Pinnacle. No, that's not a funny name from Mr. Peepers. So that's why you want to check out the aspect of a loss of consortium claim in these things. Going along with that, we want to see, is it possible that you have maybe a other claim? What other claims are there? Well, there are people that say that it has caused them to lie awake at night, not be able to sleep, psychological damage. I have heard, I can't say if I believe it, that there are people that this operation was such a bastard with keeping the pillow between your legs that it's made them afraid to have any other sorts of operations. Yes, you're entitled to money for that from Depuy Pinnacle, and things like that. One of the things that a good attorney will have done, and my attorney has not to this point, is to go through all your hobbies and to say, and I know we touched on this about 10 episodes ago, but to go through your hobbies and say, are there any hobbies or things that you do or used to do that you cannot do now that this damn thing has started acting up? And it's your job to go through and list them and say, yeah, I used to do this, I used to do that, and now I can't do that anymore. So we really want to get into that aspect of it. That's where you find all sorts of numbers of financial loss that is rewarded financially. That if you get into it, it is worth money. Now, if you remember in that previous episode about 10 episodes ago, I said it's worth money.